can afford expensive things. But in our realm of reality, most of us usually don't know how to set the boundary between what I need and what I don't need, and what should I want and what I shouldn't buy. That's just one aspect of our lives, financial aspect. Second aspect of our lives, our social aspect. In order to have peace in our lives, we need to have our social aspect in check. What is our social aspect? The people that we relate with, the people that become our friends, our everyday companions. In circus, when they want to train an elephant, for example, a wild elephant is brought to the circle. You know the first thing they do? They place the wild elephant with an elephant that it's already trained. An elephant that knows how to behave. And the elephant's good behavior rubs off in the elephant's wild behavior. The wild elephant becomes trained by the sheer presence of the good elephant. The elephant with peaceful behavior. If that works with animals, irrational animals, why it shouldn't work with us? It definitely does. So the people that we mix ourselves with are extremely important because we are under their influence without even recognize that we are being influenced by them. If you mix with people who likes to play soccer, you ended up playing soccer as well. If you mix with people who dance, you ended up dancing as well. If you mix with people who wants to sing, you ended up singing as well. But if you mix with people who wants to smoke marijuana, you'll be smoking marijuana as well. If you mix with people who shoot heroin, you ended up shooting heroin as well. If you mix with people who are always complaining about life, you ended up complaining about life as well. So at your job, be very careful not to allow yourself to be contaminated by sick individuals. When it comes to flu season, you see how people are so careful not to be contaminated by cold. They don't want to catch the flu. So wherever you go, there is an alcohol within 3 feet of your reach. So you're always rubbing your hand with alcohol because you do not want to get contaminated. You don't want to get the flu. You don't want to get sick. But when it comes to mental illness, we easily allow others to contaminate us. People who are in an irritable mood by pleasure, we allow them to contaminate us. They have their personal fights in their home. They're unhappy. And when you are that miserable, usually you have a scapegoat. Usually you have a safety valve so you don't explode out of your own misery. And this is the safety valve. Usually you push people down. Miserable people will push people down so they can have an illusion that these people are doing worse than they are. That relieves their pain. So if you have anyone at your job, in your circle of life, in your social circle, and these people are constantly trying to rub their misery on you, be very careful. They are miserable people as well. And since you must like yourself, you should not allow yourself to be contaminated by their negative thoughts, by their pessimism. Be very careful who you choose to be with. And that goes for places that we attend. There are certain places that it's very healthy for us to go to. But there are other places that it's completely unhealthy. One of the first excuses I hear in my line of work is, the reason I'm here, incarcerated, is because I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. And the question is, whose legs took you to this wrong place? Was it your mother's, your father's, your neighbor's? It was my legs. Therefore, it's your responsibility that you're here. And if you weren't here, if you weren't at this particular place, chances are you wouldn't be here as of now. Be careful who we are with. They will rub their misery on you. Third aspect of our lives that needs to be in check so we can have peace: our physical health. It's very important that we treat ourselves kindly, because our body lives under certain physical laws that needs to be in check so we don't get sick. When we abuse any substance in which the body has consumed efficiently and enough, it will hurt our body. And when it comes to controlling our physical passion, especially eating, it takes lots of moral intelligence to control our negative instincts. It doesn't take too much intellectual intelligence, but it takes moral intelligence. Working with a doctor on a daily basis, this is a man who is constantly prescribing medication to his patients. This is a man who is telling them what they should eat and what they should not eat. And you know that he had high blood pressure. And by having high blood pressure, your number one enemy becomes salt. Because the salt that you added into your body keeps all the liquids in. So the pressure of your blood exerting on the walls of your veins can cause any organ failure. And he didn't do anything besides taking a pill to resolve the problem. And we all would love to believe that a pill can fix our problems. So he maintained the same style of eating. And if there's anyone that represents the Chinese food restaurant, now they're going to throw some tomatoes at me. Because that's what he kept eating every day, Chinese food. And the quantity of salt in Chinese food, it's high. And the result of that, kidney failure. What is the function of our kidneys? To clean up our blood. So now, he stubbornly has to go. Sitting on a machine 4 days per week, 5 hours each sitting, to clean up the blood. There is a catheter that goes into his left arm, another catheter that goes into his right arm, and the blood goes into this machine, and the machine cleans the blood for him. Think of it. Right now, your kidneys are cleaning up your blood for you. When was the last time you looked at your kidney and you said, clean the blood from me? When was the last time you did that? When was the last time you told your stomach to digest the food for you? The organs are working for us to serve us. And how are we thankful to our organs? Here we go. I know you're failing. Let me put more salt into you. And the vein got clogged. And now he has to put the catheter on his neck. And you can see the big blue mark in here. If you ask me, has he stopped eating Chinese food? No, he didn't. So this man is someone who went to medical school. He obviously have intellectual knowledge, but he doesn't have wisdom, moral intelligence. To have knowledge is to know that tomato is a fruit. To have wisdom is to know not to mix tomato with fruit. So to have wisdom, moral knowledge, It requires spiritual advancement. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing this to our organs. So having our physical health in check is a must in order to have peace, because if we have a sick body, we may have many things in our lives, but definitely that physical pain will bother us. Some diseases are impossible not to suffer from them, but others are completely avoidable. And if we have avoided, and still we have to go through some physical strain, we will go through pain, but not through suffering. Suffering, it's not understanding why we have to go through pain. Pain sometimes is inevitable. Suffering is always preventable, avoidable. We don't have to go through it. So when the World Health Organization established that more people are dying of overeating than starvation, that is alarming. Obesity. In Africa, what kills people the most? HIV. In Asia, the flu virus, the bird virus. In South America, tuberculosis. In this beloved country, obesity. And you see individuals walking to the buffet, the $9.99 buffet. And usually they are eating approximately $89.99 worth of food. They make this mountain of food on top of their plate. They take it to their table, and their partner could barely see their face because that's how high the food is on their plate. Then they go for a second turn and put more food to it. And at the end of the second humongous plate, they say, well, I better save some place for dessert. What space are you talking about? Where are you going to feed anything there? And then they go on rice pudding, ice cream, and to top them all, carrot cake. There is nothing carrot of the carrot cake. Only the picture on top of it that is made up of sugar. You keep eating that stuff, you're killing yourself. There are many ways we can harm us. There are direct suicide and indirect suicide. Direct suicide is when we attempt something drastic against our lives. We use our gun, we jump in front of traffic. Now, indirect suicide is anything that we do that harms our body. We are consciously of it, yet we keep doing it. Then eating too much, it is indirect suicide. And we cannot experience peace within ourselves if we're not loving us. And to love us here, it's not to be kissing ourselves and buying the most expensive things. To love ourselves is to choose what is best for us. I will not drink. I won't smoke. I'm not going to get high. I will not overeat. Does your religion prohibit you from doing this? Is it Christianity prohibiting you? Is it Islam? Is it Confucianism? Are they prohibiting you from doing drugs? From drinking? From smoking? No. It's my intelligence that prohibits me from doing these things. Because my intelligence tells me that this is the only physical machine I have, and therefore I must take good care of it. Otherwise, my mother cannot go through the pain for me. My wife cannot go through the pain for me. My children, my husband, I'm the only one that has to suffer the consequences of my own negative habits. So my intelligence prohibits me. Don't do these things. It will cause you pain. So we must have health in our lives. And most of the time, for wise individuals, having health is not the absence of having disease. It's how they face disease that makes up them very healthy. Some people have very small illness, and yet it seems that their whole world are crumbling on top of them. And other people are paralyzed from neck down, yet they complain, they're constantly smiling, they're teaching the world on how to suffer peacefully without complaining. The fourth part of our lives that needs to be in check so we can have peace, because we have here our financial aspect, our social aspect, our health aspect. Now it comes to our family aspect. The family part of us needs to be in check, needs to be in harmony so we can have peace in our lives. I know this individual in the jail system for the past 8 months. He is a high school teacher. And one of his students provoked him to the point that he couldn't resist, and he had a sexual relationship with one of his students. The police found out. It wasn't her who complained. Of course, he didn't tell. The son was playing with his phone and found out the text messages of his student in his cell phone. And the son couldn't believe how intimate they were throughout the text messages. So he told his buddy about the text message, and his buddy happened to be the friend of the sister of the alleged abused 17-year-old child. And since that woman was a friend of his ex-wife, I confused your mind, right? But I was just trying to get to the ex-wife. You know how ex-wives, they love their ex-spouses. And the first thing she did was to call the police on him. And he came to jail. Never been in jail before. A very affluent individual. He had a school academy. And he was crying desperately because he had to face the consequences of his actions. The girl and the parents, they were very supportive of the entire situation, because she came from a culture in which it was normal for a 17-year-old to date someone who's above their 40s. So the parents were not against him. The state picked up the charges and prosecuted him. And he told me, now that I'm here for the 3rd month, I used to spend my entire summer playing golf, sometimes even twice per day. And now that I'm here, I don't miss a thing about golf. As a matter of fact, I don't even like hearing the word golf, but I terribly miss my kids. So much time I've given to golf, and I barely know my children. And now I have to face the crisis of seeing them through glasses, because they're not allowed to touch one another. It has to be through a glass. And I love my children, and I missed so much not having spent time with them. I'm learning so much from this experience. And I didn't realize, now that I'm in this situation, how selfish I was. Believe it or not, his wife was very supportive of him. She told me in a special meeting that she realized that both of them, all they were paying attention to were their financial lives. He worked 16 hours a day. She worked 16 hours a day. Put the kids through best schools. But they didn't spend enough time with each other. I'm not saying that she agreed with what he has done. She didn't. But she comprehended. And when it comes to peace, there is nothing more important than you trying to understand those who have harmed you. When you don't understand how people behave the way they do, you are against them. And that negative energy, before it hits your opponent, it consumes you from within. By understanding why people behave the way they do, it leads room to compassion. You don't agree with them, you're simply not against them. By having that understanding, it soothes your heart. It doesn't change the individual, the act that he did, but it definitely changed you, the way you feel. And that's who you're in control of. No one else besides you. So family time is extremely important. Who we're going to spend the rest of our lives with. Having the right husband and the right wife, that gives us peace. But the right husband for you, the right wife for you, could be very close to you. Yet, they are not your definition of perfect husbands and wives according to your standards. And the question is, are we the perfect couple? Are we the perfect individual for our loved one? We should take that much into consideration. If you want to live in peace within your family, let's just remind ourselves that peace is not the absence of problems. Peace is not the absence of pain. Peace is how to deal with our suffering. So we are not creating suffering because we are in pain ourselves. The best way to have peace within families is to have the ability to conversate, the power of dialogue, to speak with our partners. And it comes to our moment that it's very hard to speak. Some people say, when you get into a restaurant, do you want to distinguish the people who have been married for years and those who just met? Just look at them. Those who are speaking from their elbows and from their ears, these are the young couples who just have met. Those who are silent, they have been married for years. There's nothing to say. And that's not true. Because when you truly love someone, there are always ways of saying old things with new clothing, with new envelope, to bring beauty into the relationship. There is a story about this couple who met when they were 18 years old in a high school dance. And there were other good-looking kids at the party, and he wasn't so much good-looking. So he thought to himself, you would never had a chance with this girl, ever in a million years. But he said, you know what? I already have the no from her. Let me try the yes. So at the end of the party, he said, do you want to go out for a coffee? And the girl said, yes. He couldn't believe his ears. Neither did she. Why did I say yes to this guy? So they went to this diner nearby and they sat down. And here they are staring at each other. And he was so nervous. He was actually holding his knees underneath the table, He didn't say a word. And she was thinking to herself, God, let me leave. God, let me leave. I can't stand here anymore. And then just to break the silence, he called for the waitress and said, please, can I get some coffee? And bring the salt too. She looked at him, salt with your coffee? Now he was in a state of shock. Other people looked at him, coffee and salt? Is he out of his mind? And he said, oh my God, how am I going to get out of this? Of course, I know why I want salt. I want salt because we used to live near the shore, near North Beach. And every day I woke up with the smell of salt. And since my parents could not move to the city with me, I missed my parents. So drinking coffee with salt brings me powerful memory of them. Now she thought to herself, wow, what a sensible man. I could tell this guy anything. He will always understand me. Let me tell you where I grew up. And from this salty conversation, they were speaking for hours. They forgot the time that went by. And as all the beautiful story ends, they were happily married forever. Until one day, of course, death did him apart. Physically from one another. Because it's love that connects us. So that we can never be apart from anyone that we truly love. So they were physically apart. He died. And he found amongst his belongings a letter. And this was an apologetic letter. The letter read, "My sweetheart, my darling, now that I'm not afraid of anything because I'm near death, I must make a confession. Remember that day in the diner? That was my first lie to you. I was so nervous that you accepted my invitation that I didn't know what to do. So instead of asking for sugar, I asked for salt. And I had to make some sort of excuse. And I couldn't tell you the truth because I thought you would leave me for lying to you. And the bad thing was you made coffee with salt for 40 years. And although I couldn't bear the taste, I had to look at you, smile, and sip that thing. And this love letter is to tell you that I could never had otherwise. Because I love you. That calls for sacrifice. To have our peace, we need to sacrifice. What is to sacrifice? It's to do something that we should over what we like. What do we like? Well, we don't like salty coffee, that's for sure. But I should. I like eating a lot, but I shouldn't. I like drinking, but I shouldn't. I like smoking, I shouldn't. I like strangling people, but I shouldn't. Doing something that we should over what we like. That is one amongst many symbols, the message of the cross, the message of sacrifice. To sacrifice, to choose something that we should over what we like. And that is hard because our ego is so powerful within our behavior that we do not want to spend considering others. When we are able to overcome our needs by attending our familial needs, we'll be able to overcome selfishness. In the Spirit's book, question 780, the French educator Allan Kardec asked the highly evolved entities, what would be the result for society if family lives were relaxed? If we stopped to live as families, we all would be single. And the highly evolved spirits stated that it would be actually a retrocession to selfishness, a going back to selfishness. And according to them, there's nothing more painful to us and the producer of our misery than selfishness. Why is it that living in family works on our selfishness? Well, when you are single and you're home by yourself, the question is, where I want to go? Well, I want to go to the movies. Once you get to the movies, which movie I want to see it? What I want to eat? Popcorn, Coca-Cola, with movie. After this movie, what do I want to do? Have some coffee. But once you get married, now the question is, what we want to do, where we want to go, which movie we want to watch, what we want to eat. And once you have a child, with your wife, you lose half of your free will. With the child into place, now you have just 1/4 of your will, of your free will. And for God's sakes, you have a dog. He takes another 10% out of you. So you don't have too many choices when it comes to you. By loving your family, you'll be able to overcome your selfishness. By being able to love your family and those around you, you will be able to overcome our nepotism. What is nepotism? To love those who only love us, our family members. If you're able to overcome nepotism by loving your community, you'll be able to overcome your parochialism, which is the love for your community. If you're able to overcome your parochialism, you'll be able now to overcome your parochialism and love those in your nation, those in your ethnicity. And if you're able to overcome the chauvinist, nationalist view of life, then you'll be whole with humanity. And that's the law of life, to be whole with humanity. Not only from the spiritual perspective, but also from the scientific perspective. If I would break this table into pieces, all the way down to the atom. Now we have electron, proton, neutron. You know, if the electron decided to be selfish and said to the rest of the atom, I don't care about you guys. I want to do my way, just like Frank Sinatra, and leave the atom, it will create disturbance in the entire system. When we look at the macrocosm, the solar system, if our moon decided to be selfish and say, I don't want to deal with this planet anymore, I'm tired of giving and sharing my gravitational pull with Earth, I want to leave the system, the entire solar system will become chaotic. Life will cease to exist because sharing, which is another word for love, is at the core of the natural laws. It's not a philosophy of life. It's a law of life. And until we don't abide to it, we'll keep creating our suffering. We keep creating our pain. So here we have our physical aspect, our financial aspect, our health aspect, our family aspect to achieve peace. And what is the fifth aspect that we need to have peace within us? Our religious aspect needs to be in check. Unfortunately, throughout history, we have made so many abuses from religion that the word religion has adapted in itself a negative connotation. Nowadays, you hear people saying, I'm a spiritual person, I am not a religious person. And why? Because when it comes to religious association, the abuse have been so many throughout history that it has a bad name. This is why the singer, the musician, the poet, John Lennon, said that he wished to live in a world where there is no religion. Why is that? That's because we as a species, we have completely abused the religious ideas. When we study the core of each religion, Hinduism and the wheel of samsara, the experts, they say that Hinduism is so old that we cannot put a date to its beginning. And Hinduism already tells us about the law of action and reaction, cause and effect. We reap what we sow. If you harm someone, that pain will come to you. It's the wheel of samsara. From Hinduism, here stems Buddhism. And Buddha starts preaching about the Four Noble Truths because of the abuse of the institutionalization of Hinduism. The power within Hinduism, the hierarchy, the abuse within Hinduism made Buddha create Buddhism. And he goes on to the world to teach the Four Noble Truths. There is pain on the world. It doesn't matter if you're ignorant or intelligent, poor or rich, unknown or very famous, we all suffer. The trauma of a childbirth is suffering. Getting old is suffering. Leaving our loved ones behind is suffering. So it is impossible not to experience pain in the world. First noble truth. Second noble truth. Every pain has a cause. Every pain has a cause. They don't pop up into existence. They have a cause. Third noble truth. We must extirpate the cause of our problems, the cause of our pain. Fourth noble truth. How to remove the cause of our suffering. The Buddhist teachings alone will make us be a better individual. But unfortunately, the institutionalization of Buddhism resulted in other religions. In China, Confucianism. And this is what Confucius said. When there is righteousness in the heart, there will be beauty in the character. When there is beauty in the character, there will be harmony in the family. When there is harmony in the family, there will be peace in the world. In other words, the peace in the world is the result of our righteousness in our heart. To live a correct moral life. Not harming anyone, not abusing anyone, helping others instead. But we didn't listen to Confucius. And here comes Taoism. What